Erwin Rommel, one of the most famous German marshals of World War II. Charismatic risk-taker, an undisputed master of blitzkrieg, a cunning and sly commander respected by both his allies and his enemies. It may be hard to believe at first, but this born leader very nearly missed out on starting a military career altogether. Young Erwin exhibited technical abilities, which made him initially seek a career in the aviation design industry. As a teenager, he and his friends constructed a functional glider. He also disassembled and reassembled an entire motorcycle on his own. However, his below-average grades in school would prove to be an insurmountable obstacle. Rommel's father also urged his son to opt for a different career path. Rommel's creativity eventually found itself an outlet on the battlefield. When joining the military, Rommel couldn't boast a military heritage like some of his peers, but this shortcoming was more than made up for by his leadership skills and being able to think outside the box. His love for offensive action has shown itself as early as World War I. While commanding a battalion of a couple hundred soldiers in the Battle of Caporetto, he launched a surprise attack, taking nearly 9,000 soldiers and 150 officers prisoner. Soldiers under Rommel's command at the time used to say that the front line is where Rommel is. For his achievements, he received the highest German military decoration order, Pour le Mérite. In the interwar period, Rommel devoted his time to learning the art of war. His book, Infantry Attacks, became an international bestseller. Utilized heavily by other armies across the globe, it was also one of the favorite books of General George Patton. While Rommel never officially joined the ranks of the NSDAP, he supported its expansionist policies, actively partaking in their aggressive military operation. In 1939, during the German invasion of Poland, Rommel was responsible for the Chancellor's personal guard, which proves just how much the German leader trusted the general. Rommel's finest hour as a commander would come a year later during the German invasion of France. May 1940. Despite lacking experience in commanding tank units, Erwin Rommel was appointed as the commander of the 7th Panzer Division, with which he has managed to force his way through the Ardennes, a region thought to be impossible to traverse with armored units. This allowed him to circumvent the Maginot Line and continue his push to the west, eventually reaching the town of Arras. It was in this place that the Allies would commence their fiercest attack on the Germans yet. If the British can successfully join forces with the French, the German army will find themselves trapped. Your task is to not let that happen at any cost. Georgy Zhukov, a man considered by many to be the symbol of Russian military operations on the Eastern Front. The marshal who conquered Berlin and was granted the honor of accepting the German surrender. A commander well respected and even feared during the post-war years by Joseph Stalin himself. In the beginning, nothing seemed to indicate the heights of fame and glory young Georgy would once reach. He was born to a poor family of farmers, and by the age of 9 was sent to Moscow to work under his uncle's supervision as a furrier. It was during the First World War that Zhukov became involved with the military. Enlisted into the Tsar's army, he was wounded in battle from a grenade explosion and was awarded with the St. George's Cross twice for his extraordinary courage in battle. Zhukov supported the revolution which started raging throughout Russia and took part in the civil war fighting against the Tsar's soldiers. Climbing the ranks of the newly established Red Army, he commanded a novel tank regiment as well as a cavalry corps. Zhukov quickly understood the importance tanks would present in modern war and was a strong advocate for the modernization of the Soviet army. Zhukov's first military success as a commander was the Russo-Japanese War of 1939. Commanding the Red Army in the Battle of Khalkhin Gol in eastern Mongolia, he has managed to inflict crippling damage to his opponents. This would be the first time Zhukov managed to turn the tides of history. Japanese defeat in Mongolia was followed by a change of focus for their territorial conquests from northern Asia to the Pacific. For his victories over Japan in Asia, Zhukov was awarded with the highest Soviet distinction, the title Hero of the Soviet Union. On the eve of the German invasion of the Soviet Union, Zhukov was already a part of the inner circle of the highest Soviet military command as a chief of staff of the Red Army. He had an understanding of the course of a hypothetical Soviet-German conflict coming from a multitude of covert simulations. Soon enough, Zhukov and other Soviet officers would be able to put their skills to the test. On June 22, 1941, the German Reich would begin their invasion of the Soviet Union. This war would bring eternal glory to many Soviet commanders, and, perhaps most of all, to Georgy Zhukov himself. 1941 is drawing to a close. A few months ago, when the Germans were beginning their invasion of the Soviet Union, they strongly believed that the strategy of blitzkrieg would allow them to conclude their campaign before winter arrived. Despite many early victories, the pouring rain, Russian frost, and unexpected Soviet resistance depleted the German offensive of its momentum only a couple of dozen kilometers from the capital. Georgy Zhukov, who commands the defense of Moscow, is certain that this is the right time to begin the counter-offensive. Your task is to lead your troops into a historic and unprecedented victory against the German blitzkrieg. George Patton. One could easily name him a born militaryman. Controversial to some, while beloved by the troops under his command, a general who understood the intricacies of modern war, a general who led his troops swiftly and surely on the battlefield, an advocate for the utilization of tanks on the battlefield, who could adapt the German doctrine of blitzkrieg into the American army. This pioneer of armored warfare started off in the military as a cavalryman. He was passionate about horse riding and designed a new type of saber in 1913, which came to be known as Patton's saber. He was also a talented athlete. He practiced fencing and track and field, going so far as to represent the US in the 1912 Olympic Games, taking 5th at the pentathlon. When the US joined the First World War, Patton supported the decision and volunteered to be sent to Europe as an adjutant to General John Pershing. During his stay in France, he became fixated on the topic of tanks. He organized tutorials for the soldiers regarding tanks and commanded the 304th Armored Brigade. He was wounded in his thigh during combat, which prevented him from active duty until the end of the war. For his participation in battles and being wounded in combat, he has received the Distinguished Service Medal and the Purple Heart. In the interwar period, Patton worked on developing US armored forces, but his fierce views on this topic were often met with skepticism among the US High Command. While serving on Hawaii, he prepared a report in which he correctly recognized a potential Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor as a viable threat. Both his predictions about Japanese intentions and his appreciation for the role of tanks in the upcoming war were proven correct. Patton distinguished himself from his peers by his devoted, charismatic leadership and maintaining discipline among his troops, who, in turn, deeply respected their general. His fiery speeches motivated his soldiers before battles. His views on other topics could be briefly described as unconventional. He believed in the concepts of destiny and reincarnation. He was interested in the biographies of ancient leaders. When the United States joined the Second World War, Patton could finally utilize his unique abilities to the fullest extent. November of 1942. As a part of Operation Torch, the American forces have begun a landing operation targeting French colonies in North Africa, now controlled by the puppet Vichy government. George Patton is leading the attack on French-controlled Morocco. Your task is to take the coastal city of Port Lyautey. This success will most likely convince the French administration in Morocco and Algeria to switch sides. This will allow us to launch an offensive to the east, which will force Rommel to fight us on two fronts at once.